his gaze fixed on a plump rabbit nibbling on the grass just a few feet away. The animal's soft brown fur blended into the forest floor, but its movements were erratic. Small hops and twitches as if it sensed danger nearby. Liam steadied his breath, tightening his grip on the goblin-forged dagger he held. "Sorry, little guy," he whispered under his breath, "but I need this more than you do." He inched forward, each step slow and deliberate, until he was close enough to lunge. The rabbit froze, its ears twitching. Liam didn't hesitate. With one swift motion, he brought the dagger down, catching the rabbit cleanly. The animal twitched once before going still. Liam let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding and sat back on his heels, the dagger still in his hand. "Guess that makes me a hunter now," he muttered, lifting the rabbit by its hind legs. A faint pang of guilt gnawed at him, but it was quickly overshadowed by the ache in his stomach. Survival came first. The clearing he chose wasn't large, but it was open enough to let the sunlight filter through the trees. Nearby, a brook babbled softly over mossy rocks, its crystal clear water reflecting the green canopy above. Liam knelt by the brook, washing his hands in the rabbit carcass before gathering sticks and dry leaves for a fire. He crouched over the makeshift pile of kindling, summoning the smallest firebolt spark. The ember danced in his palm before he released it onto the leaves, watching as they smoldered and ignited. "Fire magic does have its perks," he said, grinning as the flames grew. Skewering the rabbit on a stick, he propped it over the fire, letting the heat cook the meat. The smell of roasting meat filled the air, making his stomach growl louder. He sat back, stretching his legs and leaning against a nearby tree as he stared into the flames. The fire crackled softly, its warmth spreading over Liam's face. He tore a chunk of meat from the roasted rabbit and chewed slowly, savoring the taste. It wasn't much, but it was the best meal he'd had since arriving in this world. As he ate, his thoughts drifted back over the events of the past few days. The fight with the slime, the intensity of the orc cave, the dire wolves, and the goblin shaman. They all felt like pieces of a strange dream, yet here he was, alive, stronger than he'd ever been. But it's not enough, he thought, his gaze hardening. This world doesn't reward weakness. If I want to survive, if I want to thrive, I need to keep pushing. I can't let this be my peak. The soul-bound system's familiar chime broke the silence. "Would you like to review your current stats and abilities?" "Yeah," Liam said, sitting up straighter. "Let's see what I'm working with." A translucent screen appeared before him, glowing faintly in the firelight. Soulbound system. Status overview. Name, Liam. Level, 7. Experience, 32 of 800 XP to level 8. Attributes. Strength, 12. Agility, 14. Endurance, 11. Intelligence, 13. Luck, 20. Skills. Firebolt, level 2. A basic fire spell, increased power and reduced mana cost. Combat instincts, beginner, improves reaction time and awareness in battle. Flame wave, level 1, unleashes a burst of flame in a wide radius. Inventory, void pouch, unlimited storage. Solus, legendary sword, grows stronger with the wielder. Ember staff, enhances fire magic potency. Ember ring, increases the power and duration of fire-based spells. Ember cloak, reduces fire magic mana cost and provides resistance to cold. Liam studied the screen, nodding as he absorbed the information. "Not bad," he muttered, "but it's nowhere near enough." Observation. Continued combat and exploration will yield faster stat growth and unlock additional skills. "I know," Liam said, clenching his fists, "and I'll keep going. I don't just want to survive here, I want to be the best, the strongest. No one's going to look down on me again." The system didn't respond, but its glow seemed to pulse faintly, as if in silent agreement. The next morning, Liam packed up what little he had, stashing the remaining meat in the void pouch before setting out. The forest was alive with the sounds of chirping birds and rustling leaves, but Liam's focus was sharper now, his senses attuned to potential threats. The day wore on, the air grew heavier, and the sound of rushing water reached his ears. Following the noise, he emerged at the edge of a wide river. On the opposite bank, nestled among the trees, was a small village of crude wooden huts. Liam crouched low, studying the settlement. The lizard men were taller than goblins, their green, scaly skin gleaming in the sunlight. They moved with a predatory grace, carrying spears and crude shields. Lizard Scout, level 5. Threat level, moderate. Abilities, enhanced vision. Water resistance. Lizard Man Warrior, level 6. Threat level high. Abilities, superior strength. Aquatic adaptability. Lizard Man Chieftain, level 8. Threat level, very high. Abilities, water surge, commanding roar. This looks like trouble, Liam muttered, gripping Solus. But trouble's where the XP is. Liam slipped across the river using a fallen log as a bridge, moving as silently as he could. The lizard men didn't notice him until he was already within the village, his firebolt cutting through the first scout. Enemy defeated. Experience gained 150 XP. The remaining lizard men roared in alarm, their guttural cries echoing through the trees. Warriors armed with spears rushed at him, their movements swift and deliberate. Liam fired off another firebolt, striking a warrior in the chest. The flames seared through its scaly hide, but the creature didn't fall immediately. Guess you're tougher than you look, Liam muttered, doing a spear thrust and countering with a slash from Solus. The battle raged on, the air filled with the sounds of clashing weapons and hissing flames. Liam wove between the lizard men, using firebolt and flame wave to keep them at bay while cutting down any that got too close. Enemies defeated. Experience gained 450 XP. The lizard man chieftain stepped forward, towering over its fallen kin. The staff it held glowed with a faint blue light, water swirling around its body as it growled at Liam. This is it, Liam said, gripping Solus tightly. The chieftain raised its staff, unleashing a torrent of water that crashed into Liam, sending him sprawling. He coughed, struggling to his feet as the chieftain advanced. Not bad, he muttered, but I've got fire. He summoned a massive firebolt, the flames burning brighter than ever thanks to the ember ring. The spell struck the chieftain, but the water swirling around it dampened the flame. Liam gritted his teeth, switching tactics. He dodged another water attack, closing the distance and delivering a powerful slash with Solus. The blade cut deep, and the chieftain roared in pain. With one final effort, Liam unleashed Flame Wave, the burst of fire overwhelming the chieftain's defenses. The creature collapsed, its staff shattering as it fell. Enemy defeated. Experience gained 600 XP. Level up. Current level 8. Skill acquired. Water manipulation, level 1. Liam knelt beside the chieftain's remains, picking up a glowing blue crystal. As he touched it, a cool sensation spread through him, and he felt a new power awaken. Water magic, he said, a small smile forming. Looks like I've got a lot more to learn. With his new ability and fresh determination, Liam turned back toward the forest, ready for whatever lay ahead. Chapter 8. Monsters and Power. The ancient forest of monsters seemed endless, a labyrinth of towering trees and twisted roots that tested every ounce of Liam's patience and endurance. The further he ventured, the darker and more foreboding the forest became. Sunlight struggled to pierce the dense canopy, leaving only faint beams to illuminate his path. Liam didn't mind the darkness. He welcomed the challenge. Every shadow held the promise of a fight, and every fight brought him closer to his goal. This forest is basically one big training ground, he muttered, brushing a low-hanging branch out of his way. His other hand rested on the hilt of Solus, its familiar weight comforting. Let's see what you've got for me today. The soul-bound system chimed softly in his mind, its calm tone a stark contrast to the tension in the air. Skill progression requires active use. Frequent combat and exploration will yield faster results. I know, Liam said with a smirk. Keep fighting, keep growing. Trust me, I'm not stopping anytime soon. The forest was quiet. Too quiet. Liam froze mid-step, his senses heightened. A faint rustling in the underbrush caught his attention, the sound growing louder as something moved closer. Then, without warning, two sleek reptilian creatures burst from the bushes, their emerald green scales shimmering in the dim light. Blending seamlessly, blending seamlessly with their surroundings. They moved on powerful hind legs, their sharp claws digging into the dirt as they circled him like predators, sizing up their prey. Forest Raptor, Level 6. Threat level, high. Abilities, pack tactics, leaping strike. Great, Liam lamented, drawing solace. I was just thinking my day was too boring. One of the raptors lunged, its jaws snapping inches from his arm. Liam twisted, narrowly dodging the attack, and countered with a quick slash. Solace cut deep into the creature's side, and it let out a piercing screech, its green blood splattering onto the forest floor. The second raptor darted in from the side, using its sharp claws to swipe at Liam's legs. He jumped back just in time, summoning a firebolt with his free hand. "Eat this!" he shouted, hurling the flaming projectile. The spell struck the raptor square in the torso, knocking it backward as flames licked across its scales. Enemy health, 30% remaining. Liam didn't waste a second. He dashed forward, driving Solace into the wounded raptor. It collapsed with a final screech, its body dissolving into light. The remaining raptor hissed, its yellow eyes narrowing. It crouched low, its muscles tensing as it prepared to pounce. Liam readied himself, raising Solace and channeling magic into his palms. The raptor leapt, its claws extended. Liam dodged to the side, releasing a powerful flame wave that engulfed the creature in a burst of fire. The raptor howled in agony before collapsing into a smoldering heap. Enemy defeated. Experience gained 200 XP. Level up. Current level 9. That familiar warmth spread through Liam's body as the system announced his level up. His reflexes sharpened, his magic more potent. He knelt by the remains of the raptors, picking up a glowing scale left behind. Item obtained, Forest Raptor Scale. The scale shimmered faintly, its surface cool to the touch. Liam slipped it into the void pouch, patting the bag with a grin. Best bag ever. The forest grew darker as Liam ventured deeper. The air was thick with humidity, and an eerie silence hung in the air. Liam's boots crunched softly against the forest floor as he scanned his surroundings. A faint clicking sound made him stop. He turned, his grip on Solace tightening. The noise grew louder, and then he saw it. A massive spider, its hairy legs glinting in the dim light, its many eyes reflecting a dull red, and venom dripping from its fangs. Giant Forest Spider, Level 7. Threat level, high. Abilities, Web Trap, Venom Bite. Spiders, Liam uttered, his stomach turning. Of course. The spider lunged, its fangs aiming for his shoulder. Liam ducked, slashing upward with Solace. The blade cut into one of the creature's legs, and it screeched, rearing back. He raised his free hand, summoning a firebolt, and hurled it at the spider's abdomen. The flames spread across its body, and the creature thrashed wildly, trying to extinguish the fire. Before Liam could strike again, a second spider descended from the trees, landing behind him. Its legs clacked against the ground as it advanced, its fangs bared. "Two of you? Really?" Liam said, spinning to face the new threat. The first spider recovered, its burned body twitching as it scuttled toward him. Liam gritted his teeth, channeling magic into his ember staff. Flame wave! A burst of fire erupted around him, engulfing both spiders. Their screeches echoed through the forest as they collapsed, their bodies dissolving into light. Liam wiped the sweat from his brow, his heart still racing. He picked up 2 items from the remains, a bottle of venom and a sticky thread that glowed faintly. System activation complete. Spider venom flask, enchanted web thread. He dropped them into the void pouch, shaking his head. What's next, a dragon? The forest opened into a small clearing, where a weathered chest sat beneath a massive tree. Vines snaked around its surface, and moss covered its edges. Liam approached cautiously, his eyes scanning the area for traps. He knelt by the chest, brushing away the vines. The lock was old and rusted, but with a strong strike from Solus, it broke open. Inside was a glowing crystal, its blue light pulsating faintly. Mana crystal shard. Restores mana instantly when consumed. Not bad, Liam said, tucking the crystal into the void pouch. This forest might actually be worth the trouble. Just as Liam turned to leave the clearing, the ground shook. A deep guttural roar echoed through the forest, sending a chill down his spine. Emerging from the shadows was the largest raptor he'd seen so far. Its scales were a dark emerald, and jagged scars covered its body. Its eyes burned with intelligence and rage. Alpha Forest Raptor, level 10. Threat level, very high. Abilities, Pack Command, Frenzy. An Alpha Raptor? Liam said, his grip tight on Solus. Let's get to it! The raptor roared, charging at him with incredible speed. Liam dodged deftly, slashing at its flank as it passed. The blade cut deep, but the creature barely flinched. Great, Liam muttered. This is gonna take a while. The Alpha lunged, its claws inching close to his neck. Liam raised the ember staff and summoned a massive firebolt. The flames struck the raptor's head, blinding it temporarily. He pressed for the advantage, activating Flame Wave to drive it back. The burst of fire scorched the ground, and the Alpha roared in fury, its scales smoking. The raptor entered a frenzy, its movements becoming erratic and unpredictable. Liam dodged left and right, narrowly avoiding its claws and jaws. With a final burst of strength, he drove Solus into the raptor's belly, the blade glowing as it absorbed the creature's energy. The Alpha let out a final roar before collapsing. Enemy defeated. 600 XP. Item obtained. Alpha Raptor Fang. Liam knelt by the Alpha Raptor's remains and picked up the fang. It radiated a faint energy, and he stored it in the void pouch with a satisfied smile. That was intense, he said, wiping sweat from his brow, but worth it. As he turned to leave the clearing, he couldn't help but wonder what other challenges the forest had in store. Chapter 9. The Alpha Predator. The forest changed. Liam noticed it almost immediately. The thick green canopy that once let in dancing beams of sunlight had grown denser, darker, suffocating. Shadows twisted and stretched along the mossy ground. The cheerful chirping of birds and the distant rustle of smaller creatures had faded into a heavy, stifling silence. It wasn't natural. Every survival instinct he had screamed at him to turn back, and yet he pushed forward. His boots crunched softly against damp earth as he weaved between gnarled roots and low-hanging branches. Every few steps he would pause, listening, not just with his ears, but with his entire being. The forest here was ancient, older than anything he had ever encountered. It felt like a place untouched by man, wild, sacred, and deadly. Soulbound's voice broke the quiet in his mind, cold and clinical. Warning: entering alpha monster territory. Proceed with extreme caution. Liam exhaled slowly. His breath was misting in the cool, humid air, and his hand instinctively tightened around the hilt of his sword. Solus, the living blade that had accompanied him since his first victory against the slime. Alpha monster, he murmured. He had heard the term whispered once before from an appraisal window he barely understood when he stumbled across the remains of a massive direwolf earlier in his journey. Alpha monsters were rulers of their domain. Monsters that had survived countless battles, devoured challengers, and evolved beyond their kin. In short, living disasters. The smart thing would be to turn back, hunt weaker prey, level slowly and steadily, like Soulbound always advised when he started. But Liam didn't come to this world to be careful. He remembered the boy he had been in the orphanage, small, invisible, and helpless. No matter how much he tried to hide, he had been easy prey for bullies, forgotten by adults who were supposed to protect him. His only friend had been a stray dog, and he hadn't even been able to save him without dying himself. Here in this world, things were different. Here, he had power, skills, and a future. If he wanted to be more than just a survivor, if he wanted to be more than just a survivor, if he truly wanted to become the strongest, the kind of person who would never be helpless again, then he needed to face fear head on. Liam's lips tightened into a grim line. He adjusted the strap of his void pouch, checked the feel of Solus at his side, and kept moving forward. The signs of the Alpha grew clearer the deeper he ventured. Massive claw marks scarred the trunks of trees, gouging out entire strips of bark, like someone had raked daggers across them. Patches of ground were churned up into craters, as if something enormous had battled here and won. Bones lay scattered under thorny bushes, some gnawed clean, others shattered into splinters. A faint breeze carried a new scent to him, musky, wild, and sharp, like wet iron. The smell of blood, fresh and old. Liam crouched beside a torn animal carcass, a massive deer half-eaten. Judging by the size of the bite marks alone, whatever killed it was far larger than any wolf he had encountered before. He stood slowly, muscles tense. "This is it," he whispered to himself. "The strong ones rule here." For a moment, doubt gnawed at him. A small, reasonable voice whispered inside his mind. "You're not ready. You could die here. You've barely started." But another voice rose up stronger, his own, hardened by battles, loneliness, and the desire to protect the future he could finally have. If not now, when? He wasn't the same boy anymore. He couldn't afford to be. Liam climbed a slight incline, pushing through thick branches that snagged at his cloak. From the top, he looked down into a shallow basin, a natural clearing ringed by dead trees and jagged stones. There, lying lazily across a broken stump, was the Alpha. Even from a distance, Liam's breath caught. The creature was massive, easily the size of a small car. Its body thick with rippling muscles under a coat of dark, nearly black fur. Its eyes glowed faintly, a predatory gold that swept the clearing with a slow, deliberate gaze. Deep scars marred its body, long lines crisscrossing its flanks, a torn ear, a thick, ugly scar across its snout, a living testament to countless battles survived. The Alpha dire wolf shifted slightly, sniffing the air, massive paws flexing. Teeth, as long as Liam's forearm, glistened in the weak shafts of light filtering through the canopy. System activation complete. Alpha Direwolf, level 20, threat level very high. The appraisal window flashed before his eyes like a warning beacon. Soulbound's voice returned, sharper this time, almost urgent. "Caution, target is extremely dangerous. Fleeing is advised. Probability of fatality, 87%. Liam swallowed hard. 87%. Those were terrible odds, worse than any battle he had fought so far. His heart pounded violently in his chest, and for a brief second he considered it. Turning back, living to fight another day. But something deep inside him, something forged in the darkest moments of his old life, refused to submit. He couldn't keep running from bigger challenges forever. If he turned away now, what was the point of all the pain, the training, the sacrifices? Liam took a deep breath, centered himself. The fear didn't vanish. It never would. But he moved anyway. He unsheathed Solus slowly, the blade whispering against the scabbard, and drew a small amount of magic into his hands. A faint glow of fire danced across his fingertips, his trusted first spell primed and ready. If the Alpha was going to hunt him, it would be prey willing to fight back. The massive wolf's ears pricked up, its head turned, and their eyes met. A low, rumbling growl rolled across the clearing, making the very ground vibrate beneath Liam's feet. The Alpha rose from its resting place, muscles rippling, lips curling back to reveal rows of gleaming teeth. Its hackles stood up, and the air itself seemed to thicken with the promise of violence. Liam tightened his grip on his sword. No more running. He stepped down the hill slowly, deliberately, meeting the beast's gaze without flinching. The battle for survival had begun. The alpha dire wolf moved like a shadow torn loose from the earth, silent, swift, and filled with raw power. One moment it was standing, the next it exploded into motion, charging at Liam with terrifying speed. The ground quaked beneath its paws, and the distance between them vanished in the blink of an eye. Liam barely had time to react. Instinct screamed through him. He flung himself sideways, rolling across the forest floor just as a massive claw carved through the air where his head had been. The force of the swipe sliced a deep trench into the dirt and sent splinters of wood and debris flying. Too fast. Liam came up into a crouch, heart hammering. Firebolt already forming in his free hand. Without thinking, he thrust his palm forward, releasing the spell. A searing bolt of flame shot toward the alpha, a perfect, direct hit to the creature's chest. The impact exploded with a sharp crack, flames licking across the beast's fur. For a moment, Liam dared to hope, but as the smoke cleared, the dire wolf simply shook itself like a wet dog, extinguishing the flames with casual ease. The blackened fur barely hid the unbroken flesh beneath, not even a burn mark. Liam's stomach twisted into a knot. The firebolt wasn't strong enough. The alpha snarled, deep and guttural, revealing fangs longer than daggers. It lowered its massive head, muscles coiling as it prepared to charge again. This time, Liam met it head-on. He sprinted forward, soulless gleaming in the dim light, angling to the side to avoid a direct collision. At the last second, he pivoted, slashing downward at the alpha's foreleg, aiming for the tendons. Steel met flesh with a dull, jarring thud. It was like striking a living wall. Soulless bit into the beast's hide, but only barely, drawing a thin line of blood across thick muscles. Before Liam could withdraw, a massive paw lashed out. He felt the impact before he saw it. A thunderous blow that smashed into his side and hurled him through the air like a rag doll. The world spun wildly. He crashed into a tree trunk with a bone-jarring crack, the air blasting out of his lungs. Pain exploded through his ribs and shoulder. Minor fracture detected, left arm. Liam gasped, forcing himself to stand, every nerve in his body screaming. The alpha was already stalking toward him, slow and deliberate, savoring the hunt. Flee. Probability of survival in direct confrontation, 12%. The system's voice was sharp in his mind. Panicked. I know, Liam thought bitterly, but fleeing wasn't an option. Not anymore. The alpha had marked him as prey. Running would only guarantee his death. Gritting his teeth, Liam forced himself upright, cradling his injured arm against his body. His mind raced. Think, survive, adapt. He couldn't match the alpha's strength, couldn't even hurt it badly with basic attacks. But maybe he didn't have to. Liam glanced around quickly, eyes scanning the terrain. The battlefield was uneven, filled with fallen logs, dense thickets, and jagged rocks. Obstacles, cover, traps. A plan began to form. The alpha charged again, a blur of black and muscle. Liam didn't try to meet it head-on this time. Instead, he darted sideways, weaving through the trees, forcing the alpha to maneuver awkwardly through the narrow gaps. The creature's sheer size slowed it down, even if only slightly. Liam skidded around a massive fallen tree, dropping behind it just as the alpha lunged. The beast crashed into the log, snapping the rotted wood in half with a deafening crack. But for the first time, it stumbled. Opportunity. Liam twisted around, summoning his magic again. System activation complete. Water Blade Level 1 activated. A sharp, shimmering crescent of water materialized around Solus's edge. He slashed forward, sending the projectile water slicing through the air. The blade struck the alpha's side, cutting deeper than Firebolt had. Thin arcs of blood splattered across broken trees. The alpha snarled in pain and rage, the first real reaction Liam had gotten. Good. It can be hurt. Liam didn't let up. He ran, forcing the beast to follow him through the broken terrain, leading it over uneven ground, past sharp rocks, and under low-hanging branches. Each time it charged, he baited it into awkward positions, slashing, burning, and cutting wherever he could. A dozen small wounds were opened across the alpha's hide, staining its dark fur crimson. But even bleeding, even slowed, the monster was still relentless. A wrong step cost him. Liam's foot caught on a hidden root. He stumbled, just for a second, but it was enough. The alpha lunged, jaws gaping wide. Liam threw himself backward, barely avoiding a snap that would have taken off his leg. Claws raked across his chest, tearing through his armor and slicing shallow furrows into his skin. Pain flared white-hot, but adrenaline pushed him on. He rolled, came up into a low crouch, firebolt already in hand. No need to aim, just fire. He unleashed the spell point blank. The fireball slammed into the alpha's face, forcing the beast to rear back with a furious howl. The stench of singed fur filled the clearing. Liam scrambled to his feet, heart hammering, vision blurred by sweat and blood. This is bad. I can't win like this. He needed something bigger, a turning point. Soulbound chimed again, but this time the tone was different. System activation complete. Survival instinct skill activated. Temporary buff. Plus 15% agility. Plus 10% reflexes for 10 minutes. Liam gasped as the world sharpened around him. Colors grew clearer, sounds more distinct. His body felt lighter, faster, more responsive. This is my chance. The alpha shook off the fire and turned back toward him, fury burning in its golden eyes. It charged again, the ground trembling beneath its massive paws. But this time, Liam was ready. He ducked low, moving faster than he thought possible. At the last second, he twisted around the beast's snapping jaws, using the alpha's own momentum against it. He drove Solus deep into the creature's exposed underbelly, water magic flaring around the blade. The alpha howled, stumbling, blood pouring from the deep wound. Liam yanked the sword free, leapt back, and immediately followed with a double cast, using firebolt and water blade. Fire and water, heat and sludge, slammed into the alpha's injured flank. The beast roared in agony, staggering under the assault. Liam didn't stop. He pressed the attack relentlessly, using his boosted agility to stay one step ahead. Dodging, striking, and dodging again, cut by cut, spell by spell, he wore the alpha down. The great predator that ruled this forest was beginning to falter, and Liam, broken, bloodied, but unbowed, refused to give it a moment's rest. He could feel it now, the turning of the tide. For the first time since the battle began, victory seemed possible. The alpha snarled, circling Liam with slow, deliberate steps, golden eyes never leaving him. It was still dangerous, even wounded, even bleeding, but now it was cautious. The beast had recognized that Liam wasn't an easy kill. Liam would make it regret ever thinking he was prey. His mind raced, analyzing the terrain. The clearing was large, littered with shattered trees, jagged rocks, and thick underbrush. The earlier chaos had created obstacles and traps waiting to be used. Liam darted backward, moving toward a cluster of fallen logs. The alpha lunged, predictable and aggressive. At the last second, Liam twisted around the logs, forcing the beast to slam into them head first. The alpha snarled and snapped its jaws, tearing apart the obstacle. But the brief hesitation brought Liam precious seconds that he needed. He raised his hand, gathering magic. Water blade. A shimmering arc of magic spun from his palm, slicing across the alpha's flank. Blood sprayed, dark and thick, staining the ground. The alpha howled and spun toward him, but Liam was already moving. Keep it off balance. Make it react. That was the key. Using the environment, Liam led the alpha into tight spaces, narrow gaps, uneven ground, anything that disrupted its sheer size and power advantage. Each time the beast charged, it stumbled slightly, forced to slow or twist awkwardly. Each time, Liam struck with small, fast attacks, whittling it down piece by piece. He even began using Firebolt not as a direct attack, but to set fires along the edges of the battlefield, burning thickets and fallen brush. The smoke and flames created visual barriers, further confusing the Alpha and limiting its movements. Control the field, control the fight. It was a deadly dance, and Liam was learning the steps with every heartbeat, but he was running out of energy. Each spell drained his stamina, each dodge sapped his strength. The pain in his fractured arm throbbed violently, a constant reminder that he wasn't invincible. I need to end this soon. The Alpha, maddened by its wounds and frustration, roared and surged forward. Liam tried to sidestep, but too late. The beast's massive paws caught him across the ribs, sending him flying again. He slammed into the ground hard, rolling through dirt and ash. The world tilted. Pain lanced through his side, sharp and deep. Internal injury detected. Movement severely impaired. Liam gasped, coughing up flecks of blood. The Alpha charged, its jaws wide, eyes gleaming with savage triumph. Liam forced himself upright, vision swimming. His body screamed at him to stay down, but he refused. This was not about pride anymore. It was about survival. He had one chance. He waited to the very last second when the Alpha lunged. Liam dropped flat to his back, a desperate, reckless move, letting the beast overshoot slightly. As the massive body passed over him, Liam shoved his good hand forward and shouted, "Waterblade!" The spell flared to life with vicious intensity. The blade of condensed magic, far sharper and more potent, plunged upward straight into the softer, vulnerable flesh beneath the Alpha's ribcage. The water blade dug deep. The Alpha howled in agony, twisting violently. Liam rolled away narrowly, avoiding being crushed under its bulk. Blood gushed from the deep wound, splattering the ground in thick, steaming rivulets. The beast staggered, finally showing real weakness. Liam was at his limit, too. Every breath was a struggle. His arm trembled with exhaustion. His legs felt like lead. Still, he forced himself to stand. This was it. One final play. It's me or you. Liam stumbled through the burning clearing, drawing the Alpha's attention. The fires he had started earlier had spread, surrounding the battlefield in a choking ring of smoke and flame. The Alpha tracked him, snarling, blood dripping from its wounds, its massive chest heaving. It was wounded, angry, desperate, just like Liam. Liam sprinted toward a narrow gap between two flaming trees. Bait. The Alpha roared and charged after him, blinded by rage. As Liam reached the gap, he spun, raising his hands, shouting. Twin firebolts erupted from his palms, blasting the base of the two trees. The already weakened trunks gave way with a deafening crack. The trees collapsed inward, right as the Alpha barreled between them. One tree smashed into the beast's shoulder, driving it to its knees. The second fell across its back, pinning it momentarily. The Alpha snarled and thrashed, trying to rise. Liam didn't hesitate. He poured the last of his magic into Waterblade at maximum power. The sword gleamed, blazing, a pure crescent of condensed magic. With a roar of his own, Liam charged. He leapt onto the fallen tree, using it as a ramp, and launched himself high into the air. The golden eyes locked onto him, furious, defiant to the end. Liam brought Solus down in a two-handed overhead strike, all his weight and strength behind it. The blade pierced deep into the Alpha's skull, sinking to the hilt. The beast convulsed violently once, twice, then fell still. Silence. Liam slumped against the massive body, gasping for air, his vision blurred. Pain screamed from every inch of his battered body. But he was alive. He won. Soulbound rang out triumphantly. System activation complete. Victory. Alpha Direwolf slain. Level up, +2 levels. Predator's Instincts skill unlocked. Level 1. Survival Instincts skill permanently upgraded. New title acquired. Alpha Slayer. Liam laughed weakly, a rough, broken sound. He rolled onto his back, staring up at the smoke-streaked sky. For the first time in this new world, he had stood against something truly monstrous and won. Not because he was stronger, but because he was smarter, because he refused to quit, because he had become something more than prey. He lay there for a while, savoring the moment, letting the tension drain from his battered frame. Eventually, he sat up, grimacing. The Alpha's massive corpse loomed beside him, a testament to the battle. With shaking hands, he began harvesting what he could: claws, fangs, and hide. Rare materials, precious loot. He stored them carefully in his void pouch, knowing they would serve him well in the future. As he finished, Liam glanced around the clearing, now half in ruins, half in flames. The forest, it seemed, had taken its toll on him, but he had taken something from it too. Strength, resolve, a glimpse of the predator he was becoming. He staggered to his feet, leaning heavily on Solus. Beyond the burning trees, the forest stretched onward, darker, deeper, more dangerous. But Liam no longer feared it. He welcomed it. He smiled grimly, bloodied and battered, but unbroken. Then he turned his back on the fallen Alpha and moved forward into the unknown. Chapter 10. Whispering Ruins. The sky above the forest had shifted from bright blue to a soft golden haze, signaling the late afternoon sun dipping behind the lower treetops. The flickering glow of Liam's earlier battle had faded, and now only the soft hum of insects and the gentle whisper of leaves filled the silence. He moved slowly, each step a careful negotiation between the battered muscles and cracked bones. Blood still clung to his cloak in dark splotches, and a fresh, jagged tear ran across the chest of his armor where the Alpha's claws had grazed him. But he was alive, bruised, broken, but breathing. Liam stumbled into a small clearing not far from where the Alpha had fallen. A narrow stream trickled through a cluster of mossy stones, and a patch of short grass spread out beneath a low, overhanging cliff. The air was cooler here, tinged with the scent of damp earth and wild mint. "This'll do," he muttered, dropping his pack with a tired grunt. He knelt beside the stream, splashing cold water across his face and letting it roll over his bloodied hands. Pain pulsed through his body in slow, rhythmic waves, but in a strange way, it grounded him. It reminded him that he was still here. Status update. Level 11. HP, 42 of 160. Mana, 34 of 120. Status update. Level 11. HP, 42 of 160. Mana, 34 of 120. Predator's Instincts, Level 1. Survival Instincts, upgraded. Alpha Slayer. Physical Resistance, +5. Intimidation, +10 against wild monsters. Liam exhaled slowly. Alpha Slayer. He turned the words over in his mind, almost in disbelief. He'd fought something truly terrifying and won. Not because he was stronger or because of luck, but because he'd learned. He'd strategized, adapted, and clawed his way through. That fight was a turning point. He opened his void pouch, pulling out a healing potion, the last of the ones he'd found in the orc cave. The glass vial glowed faintly in the fading light. He popped the cork and drank, grimacing at the bitter taste. Warmth spread through his limbs as the potion worked its magic, dulling some of the sharper pains and speeding up the slow process of regeneration. He applied a healing salve to the slash along his ribs and wrapped it in a strip of cloth. Then, finally, he collapsed onto his back in the grass, arms outstretched, staring at the tree canopy above. The wind rustled gently through the leaves. Birds chirped distantly again, a sign that for now the danger had passed. For the first time in what felt like days, Liam let himself rest. His thoughts drifted as the world slowed around him. He remembered his old life, the gray walls of the orphanage, the icy silence of the dorms, the faces of the bullies, sneering, taunting, always just out of reach of punishment. And the dog, that quiet, loyal friend who never judged him, never hurt him. The memory of that final moment diving in front of the car, holding that small creature tight, still echoed in his mind. That was the moment he chose to stop being helpless. And here he was now, no longer the invisible boy, no longer just a survivor. Something was changing inside him, a fire, slow but steady, kindling into something stronger. "I won't waste this life," he whispered. Soulbound didn't respond. For once, it remained silent, letting him feel the weight of his own thoughts. He sat up slowly, stretching stiff limbs. His cloak had dried and his energy was returning, albeit slowly. That's when he saw it. Just beyond the trees, in the corner of his vision, a flicker of pale blue light. Not fire, not sunlight. It shimmered like mist, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat, then faded again. Liam narrowed his eyes. What was that? He stood carefully shouldering his pack and checking his gear. Solus was still at his side, and his monopool had recovered slightly enough to defend himself if needed. He moved cautiously toward the light's source, weaving between trees and ferns, keeping his senses sharp. As he moved deeper, the forest began to change again. The trees grew wider, older, their trunks wrapped in thick vines. Roots jutted from the earth like skeletal fingers, and the air grew still, heavy with moisture and age. Then he saw it, half hidden beneath a curtain of ivy and moss, a broken stone archway rising from the earth. The flickering light pulsed faintly from within. It wasn't a monster. It wasn't natural. It was something forgotten. Liam stepped through the arch. Beyond it, ancient stone pillars stood, crumbled and broken, scattered across a sunken courtyard choked with vines and rubble. Time had all but swallowed the place, yet the faint traces of magical energy still lingered in the air, a low hum that resonated just beneath his skin. He approached slowly, brushing aside ferns and stepping over shadowed stonework. Appraisal activated automatically. Incomplete reading. Ruins of unknown origin. Estimated age, 3,000 plus years. Dormant. Ancient Leyline residue detected. Partially sealed site. Caution advised. Liam's breath caught. 3,000 years? The stone beneath his boots hummed faintly with the remnants of power long since faded. He glanced at the crumbling walls, where worn carvings still clung to the rock. Figures, shapes, symbols. One mural caught his eye, a tall, robed woman with radiant wings standing above a circle of magic, arms outstretched as if shielding the world. His heart skipped. She looked like Ava. The resemblance wasn't exact, the features were faded and the carving worn, but the presence, the feeling it gave off, it reminded him of her. Was this connected to her? To the gods? To the system? The questions piled up, but he had no answers, only a growing sense that this ruin was important. Far more important than any beast he'd slain so far. And deeper inside, something was waiting. The deeper Liam walked into the overgrown ruins, the more the forest seemed to fall away. The air changed, heavier and cooler. Time itself seemed to slow. The sounds of the forest dimmed, replaced by a distant hum, like the low pulse of something ancient still breathing beneath the earth. Stone pillars lined a long path ahead, most of them broken or eroded by time, their inscriptions half swallowed by moss and vines. Strange symbols were carved into the surface, none of them readable by his eyes, but their meaning pressed against his mind like whispers just out of reach. He activated appraisal again. Ancient script detected. Translation incomplete. Magical warding glyphs present. Inactive. He brushed his fingers along one of the markings. The stone was cool and smooth, despite the centuries. For a split second, he felt something, a flicker of pressure against his palm, like the magic still remembered what it had once been. These ruins, they're not just old, Liam murmured. They were protected. He continued forward, stepping carefully over broken floor tiles and low-hanging ferns. Ahead, the path curved toward a sunken structure, what might once have been a temple or a ceremonial hall. Its arched entrance was mostly intact, though ivy had swallowed half its form. As he approached, he noticed more murals carved into the outer walls. Though worn and weathered, the imagery told fragments of a story. A woman with wings of light descending from the sky. A monstrous shadow with many eyes rising from beneath the earth. Circles of magic, lines of power. Ancient warriors with weapons glowing like stars. And a final scene. The woman sealing the shadow behind a gate. The same gate now appeared on the ruin's doors. Liam stepped back, heart pounding. This wasn't just some forgotten building, this was part of a forgotten war. And that woman. He looked again at the winged figure. It was different than the statues of goddesses he'd seen in Earth's mythology. More radiant, more serene. But the image resonated with something deep inside him. Was that Ava? Or someone like her? Did she fight something like the shadow in that carving? Is that why she brought me here? He whispered. Before he could finish the thought, Soulbound spoke softly in his mind. System activation complete. Long-range magical signature detected. Sealed source. Caution recommended. Inside the structure, the air was still and cold. Dust floated lazily in the faint beams of light that filtered through cracks in the ceiling. The floor sloped slightly downward, and Liam followed the path, moving deeper underground. He passed what looked like broken altars, shattered relics, and long-decayed tapestries that might once have told legends. Every step echoed softly. Eventually, the path opened into a vast circular chamber. Here, the walls were carved with far more details. Intricate runes and swirling patterns, ancient diagrams of celestial alignments, magical seals, and symbols that glowed faintly as he approached. In the center stood a large circular dais, cracked but still pulsing with blue-white light. At its heart hovered a crystal. It was small, no larger than his fist, and suspended in midair just above a pedestal. Wisps of energy spiraled slowly around it, like the last flickers of a long-forgotten fire. Liam took a cautious step forward. The moment he crossed the chamber's center line, Soulbound chimed again. Artifact detected. Status: dormant. Classification: unknown. Warning: item resonates with unknown magic. Soulbound user eligibility 37%. Access restricted. Requirements not met. Soulbound user eligibility? He stared at the crystal. Its glow pulsed gently, almost like it was alive or dreaming. Soulbound had never mentioned percentages like that before. Why would it measure compatibility unless... He trailed off. Unless this wasn't just an item. Unless it was something alive. Or dangerous. Liam reached a hand toward it slowly, not to touch, just to feel. The moment his fingers got within a few inches, a jolt of heat surged through the air. The crystal flared brightly once, and then dimmed. Artifact response logged. Latent bond initiated. Artifact status: sealed until conditions are met. Liam quickly pulled his hand back. A bond? He had no idea what it meant, but one thing was clear. The artifact had reacted to him. Chosen or not, it had marked him somehow. And he wasn't ready for whatever it truly was. Carefully, he summoned the void pouch and opened it. Guess you're coming with me, he whispered. The moment the pouch opened, the crystal floated downward and gently drifted into its magical space, disappearing without resistance. He took a deep breath, heart still pounding. There were no monsters in the chamber, no traps, no immediate consequences. But somehow this felt more dangerous than any dungeon he'd stepped into. It felt like something important had been set into motion. As he turned to leave the vault, a final mural caught his eye near the archway. Unlike the others, this one was fresh, unfaded, recently uncovered. The carving showed a single figure, cloaked, eyes hidden, standing at the edge of a cliff overlooking a shattered world. Behind them was a burning forest. In their hands, they held a glowing orb, and above them, the same winged figure looked down, not with love, but with judgment. Liam stared at it, unsettled. It almost looked like a warning. Be careful what you awaken. Liam stepped out of the vault chamber, the flickering glow of the sealed artifact still fresh in his mind. The silence of the ruins pressed in once more. No wind, no bird song, just the hum of old magic, faint and trembling, as if something ancient had stirred in its sleep and gone still again. He moved slowly, one hand on Solus, the other ready to cast. The carvings on the walls seemed to shimmer more now, their faint patterns pulsing with each step he took. Then he felt it, a change in the air, a drop in the temperature, the sensation of being watched. Liam turned. Something stood at the far end of the hallway, a tall figure, humanoid in shape, armored from head to toe in smooth, rune-etched plating that glowed with the same pale blue light as the artifact. It held a massive glaive carved from black metal and stood unnaturally still, like a statue, until its eyes lit with a cold, white glow. Appraisal activated. Sentinel construct. Ancient Guardian class. Level unknown. Status dormant. Activating. Threat level moderate to high. Behavior conditional aggression. Conditional? Before Liam could wonder what that meant, the construct moved. With a grinding of stone and metal, it stepped forward, then stopped. The moment it entered the hallway's main circle, glowing runes ignited beneath Liam's feet. A faint pulse of magical energy flared outward like a ripple. Trial initiated. Guardian protocol. Soulbound status detected. Trial objective. Survive until judgment is complete. Timer, 180 seconds. Trial? The construct raised its glaive and pointed it directly at him. Liam didn't want to see what happened next. He dove to the side as the Guardian's weapon came crashing down, splitting the stone floor with terrifying force. Sparks exploded in every direction. Liam rolled, came up on one knee, and fired a firebolt directly at the construct's head. The blast hit but did almost nothing. The magical armor absorbed the heat with a dull hiss, only slightly blackening the outer surface. Liam narrowed his eyes. Great, one of those fights. The construct attacked again, swinging in a wide arc. Liam ducked low and moved to the side, activating his new passive. Predator's Instinct, level 1, activated. Plus 10 reaction speed, plus 15 enemy threat detection. Bonus, visual highlighting of lethal strikes. The world shifted subtly, not visually, but intuitively. His body moved with sharper timing. He felt where the danger was before it arrived. The glaive whistled past his head by mere inches, but he was already sliding back, narrowly dodging the follow-up strike. He lunged in and slashed with Solus, aiming for the gaps in the armor's side. Sparks flew again this time. The blade bit deeper. A faint hiss of magical steam burst from the construct's torso as he leapt back. Okay, the gaps in the plating, that's where it's weak. The timer ticked in the corner of his vision. 132 seconds. The construct adjusted, and its eyes glowed brighter. Now it began using magic. A ring of glowing runes spun around its body, and suddenly a barrage of arcane bolts launched from its glaive. Liam ducked behind a broken pillar. 3 of the bolts smashed into it, splintering the stone with deafening cracks. This thing didn't just hit hard, it had ranged magic too. Can't win this by blocking. He dashed between pillars, forcing the construct to rotate and adjust. Every time he launched a spell, he used its delay to get closer, striking when it paused to charge up. Strike, dodge, strike, dodge. The fight wasn't about overpowering it. He had to survive its pattern, like a trial boss in a game. and Soulbound had said as much. Survive until judgment. 90 seconds left. Liam breathed heavily, sweat dripping into his eyes. His ribs ached. His arms still throbbed from the alpha battle, and his mana was steadily draining. But he wasn't out yet. Use terrain advantage. Corner target. Interrupt spellcasting cycles. Good idea. He waited for the next charge, then dashed toward a section of broken ceiling hanging by a thread of weakened stone. He threw a firebolt at the joint. The weakened slab of rubble broke loose and collapsed right on top of the construct's legs. The impact staggered the Guardian, slowing it just enough. Liam launched a water blade, angled low, slicing across the damaged knee joint. A burst of white-blue light hissed from the exposed gears, and the Guardian stumbled again. 75 seconds. Now it started to adapt. The Guardian began teleporting short distances, blinking just out of reach when Liam got too close. He gritted his teeth. All right, time for a gamble. Liam planted his feet and drew on everything he had. Firebolt, overcharge mode. 3 times chain, mana remaining 22%. He launched the first bolt, aimed not at the construct but at the ground in front of it. Dust and flames erupted, blocking the Guardian's view. Bolt 2 struck its chest, staggering it backward. Bolt 3 came as it stepped through the smoke, just as Liam leapt forward, using the confusion to strike directly at the glowing core just below its neck. Solus sank into the exposed slot. The construct spasmed. A high-pitched tone rang out as the runes on its armor flickered. Then slowly it lowered its glaive. Trial timer complete. Judgment passed. The construct stepped backward and sank to one knee, and the weapon lowered. Its glowing eyes dimmed. A new set of runes appeared in the air before Liam, forming a message. Bearer of Soulbound mark, you are not yet ready, but you walk the path. When the seals begin to break, return. Reward. Trial sigil stored in inventory. +2 endurance. +5 mana. Minor blessing of insight gained. Appraisal level increased. Liam stared, chest heaving. Not yet ready. Seals? Breaking? He had no idea what that meant, but clearly the construct had recognized something in him. Something tied to the artifact, the ruins, maybe even Ava herself. He looked down at the trial sigil now resting in his inventory, a small token pulsing softly with magical light. It meant something, and it wasn't just for show. Slowly, Liam bowed his head toward the construct. Thank you, he said quietly. The construct didn't move. It had returned to dormancy, its task complete, its judgment passed. Liam turned and made his way out of the ruins, exhausted but exhilarated. He'd come into this place expecting maybe a few items, maybe some knowledge. Instead, he found power, questions, warnings, and something sealed that had responded to him. He stepped back into the fading light of the forest. The world felt different now, wilder, older, and far more dangerous. Liam emerged from the ruins as the sun dipped below the treetops, casting the forest in a golden twilight. The once heavy air had shifted. The low hum of old magic was gone, and the low hum of old magic was gone, leaving behind an eerie stillness. Only the rustle of leaves and distant chirps of birds hinted that time had resumed its normal rhythm. He stepped over the moss-covered threshold, his body aching, his mind still swimming with everything he had seen. A trial guardian, a sealed artifact, murals of divine battles and forgotten horrors, a system that acknowledged his growth but warned he was not ready. Liam found a fallen tree at the edge of the ruins and sat heavily, resting Solus across his knee. The magical sword pulsed faintly in his hand, sensing both fatigue and tension in its wielder. He opened Soulbound's menu, pulling up his most recent notifications. Level 11, almost 12. Mana, +20. Endurance, +2. New item, Trial Sigil. Artifact class, inactive. Blessing of Insight, Appraisal, +1. Now capable of partial language decryption. Title progression hint, unknown. Unlocked. Progress 1 of 3. The progression hint caught his attention. What had he triggered? A new title? A hidden path within the system? He stared at it for a moment, but Soulbound offered no further clarity. As usual. Still, he wasn't the same boy who stumbled through the ancient forest of monsters days ago, afraid of slimes and hungry for scraps. He was bleeding, exhausted, still incomplete, but he was growing. He let out a long, slow breath and leaned back, letting his eyes trace the canopy above. The stars would soon rise, and with them the night's predators. But for now there was peace. For the first time in days, he wasn't just surviving, he was learning, uncovering, becoming something more. And yet, the encounter in the ruins had shaken him in ways he hadn't expected. The Guardian hadn't been a monster. It hadn't even been truly hostile. It was something else. A remnant of a civilization long gone. A piece of a story far older than this forest, this world, or even him. And the artifact. Liam glanced at his void pouch. He could feel it there, not in a physical sense, but as a faint pressure, like gravity. The sealed crystal he'd claimed still pulsed softly in its own plane of magic. He hadn't even scratched the surface of what it was, but it had responded to him, chosen to bond, whatever that meant. Soulbound said his compatibility was only 37%. So what happened if he hit 100? What will it unlock? He didn't know, but he would find out. After a small meal of dried meat, forest berries, and clean water from a nearby spring, Liam packed up again and checked the sky. Night would fall soon. He couldn't camp near the ruins. Too much magical residue, and too many chances something else might be drawn in by the scent of his battle. Instead, he hiked a short distance away, finding a narrow grove tucked between two ridges. There, under a low-hanging branch, he built a small, smokeless fire and let the warmth chase away the chill seeping into his bones. He sat cross-legged, eyes closed, and opened his system interface again. This time he asked a question. Soulbound, what is the trial sigil? A pause. Then, unexpectedly, the system replied in a voice more formal than usual. The trial sigil is a token of ancient authority, earned through recognition by a pre-cataclysmic guardian construct. When 3 are gathered, the bearer may access high-rank soulbound integration. Liam blinked. 3? So there are others, other ruins and other trials. And high-rank integration? What does that mean? Is my system incomplete? Where are the other trials? Location unknown. Trial sites are hidden across the continent. Proximity detection will be activated when near another source. So you won't guide me unless I get close. Great. Still, it's something. A new path. A new thread to follow. Liam stared into the fire, watching the flames dance. It wasn't just about leveling up anymore. Not just stats and spells. He was part of something. Something tied to the gods, the system. Maybe even why this world worked the way it did. And for the first time, he felt it. The forest was no longer enough. He'd outgrown it. He had faced its strongest predator, uncovered its oldest secret. It was time to move on. Tomorrow he would head east toward the rising smoke he had seen days earlier. Where rumor had it, a city lay beyond the mountains. The Adventurers Guild. Civilization. People. He wasn't ready to trust them yet. Not completely, but he needed to learn more. He needed resources, knowledge, allies, and maybe even rivals. If he was going to rise, to unlock the truth behind the soulbound system, to wield the artifact's full power, he'd need to walk among others. Liam stood brushing off dirt and ash. Solus pulsed quietly at his side. The ruins behind him were still. The forest ahead was quiet. But something had changed. In him, in the world. And soon, everything else would follow. Chapter 11. The Last Trial. The forest had changed again. Liam felt it in the air long before he saw anything. The wind had gone still. Not silent, but still. No rustling leaves, no shifting branches. Just like the whole forest was holding its breath. He crested a ridge of stone, and there it was, the first sign of the world beyond. Far below in the distance, he could make out faint wisps of smoke curling into the sky. Civilization. A town, a camp, something man-made. His heart beat faster. He was close, so close. Then Soulbound whispered into his mind. System activation complete. Territorial Guardian detected. Elder Varnock, Corrupted Forest Warden. Level 25. Threat level, lethal. Passage beyond the forest restricted until Guardian is defeated. Liam froze. So that was it. One final challenge. One last wall between him and the world he'd been fighting to reach. Of course it wouldn't let him go easily. He stepped down the ridge slowly, eyes scanning the dense thicket ahead. Vines hung like nooses from twisted trees, and a heavy fog crawled along the earth, clinging to his boots. Every instinct in him was screaming, danger. He passed the shattered remains of a stone path, long overgrown and nearly consumed by roots. Strange glyphs were etched along the sides of fallen markers. This was no random patch of forest. It had once been sacred ground. The corruption was strongest here. Black vines crawled along the bark of trees. Rot clung to the air, thick and sweet. The ground squelched beneath his feet. Not mud, but the remains of once living things. Flowers wilted at his touch. Liam drew solace. The blade glimmered faintly, resonating with something unseen. And then he heard it. A slow, groaning creak, wood under strain, branches twisting unnaturally. Then a sound like a giant root tearing itself from the earth. The ground shuddered. Trees parted ahead, and it stepped forward. The creature loomed like a monument, easily 30 feet tall, its bark gnarled and blackened, twisted into jagged spikes. Where a face might have once been, a glowing red orb pulsed in a deep hollow. Long, branch-like arms dragged across the ground, their tips splitting into vine-laced claws. From its back grew skeletal leafless branches, like the bones of a forest long dead. Elder Varnock, Corrupted Tree Guardian, Level 25, Terminal Corruption, Soul Core Degrading, Kills on Sight, Bound to Guardian Duty. It once protected the forest. Now it was little more than a monster wearing the skin of something sacred. The red orb turned toward Liam. The trees themselves recoiled from it. Roots twisted away. Birds scattered in all directions. Then a low, thunderous sound echoed from the creature. Not a roar, a groan of agony. The forest around Liam began to die. He didn't hesitate. This was no wild beast. This was a cursed monument, a relic of the forest's power, corrupted beyond healing. If he wanted to leave, if he wanted to survive, to be worthy of what lay beyond, he'd have to cut down the forest's final executioner. Solace pulsed in his grip. His heart pounded. Magic stirred in his veins. Liam took a deep breath, stepped forward, and whispered, "Let's end this." The ground cracked. Roots burst upward like spears, snapping through the earth as Elder Varnock stepped into the clearing. Each footfall sent shock waves into the soil, shattering stone and warping the trees around it. Black vines slithered from its feet, spreading like veins of rot. Liam backed up quickly, keeping his sword raised and his body low. Mana distortion detected. Local terrain hostile. Blightfield. Continuous health drain if stationary. He moved instantly, hopping to a nearby patch of solid earth as a red glow pulsed beneath his feet. Where he had just stood, a thick black root surged upward, coiling like a snake. "So you poisoned the ground," Liam muttered. "This monster, it's a battlefield." Varnock raised one of its massive limbs, bark twisting around it like a shield. From its gnarled palm, a volley of thorned vines shot forward, jagged, spiked, and glowing faintly with sick green energy. Liam dashed to the side, barely evading the first volley. One vine grazed his leg. The pain flared hot immediately. Corruption. Bleed. HP minus 10 per second for 15 seconds. He bit back a curse and cast Water Blade, slashing the vine away before it could coil around his boot. He then rolled behind a tree and fired back a firebolt from cover. The fire blast smashed into Varnok's upper limb. A brief burst of flame scorched the corrupted bark, but it was minimal damage. The creature didn't flinch. It didn't need to. It simply was slow, deliberate, and overwhelming. Liam's predator's instincts flared. Wide area root surge incoming. Evade immediately. The ground beneath him rumbled. He bolted sideways just as an entire cluster of thick roots erupted, tearing through trees, toppling anything nearby. He tumbled into a shallow ditch, rolled, came up covered in mud, and cast Water Blade again. This time he infused it with extra mana. The blade flashed brightly and cut deeper, slicing into the exposed core vein along Varnok's leg. Black sap splattered across the grass. The beast groaned, the sound so deep it vibrated through Liam's ribs. Not pain, but anger. Recognition. Then the real battle began. Varnok raised both arms and slammed them into the ground. A shock wave blasted through the forest. Trees withered instantaneously. Poisonous gas hissed from shattered bark. The terrain became unstable, rising and falling in jagged ridges and pits. Phase 2, Corruption Bloom initiated. Standing too long causes status overload. Are you kidding me? Liam muttered, leaping across a collapsing root bridge. He wasn't just fighting Varnok, he was fighting the forest, turning into a curse around him. He took a breath and tried to focus. Think, move, find patterns. He spotted a rise in the terrain where fewer vines reached, a tactical high ground. If he could lead the monster toward it, he ran. Varnok followed, slow and relentless. It didn't chase him with rage, it marched like an executioner. No rush, no panic. Liam skidded to the top of the rise and spun, casting a quick barrage. Firebolt to distract, Water Blade to cut open a weakened leg joint, and a deftly thrown dagger laced with poison he harvested earlier into the open wound. Varnok recoiled, bark armor hissing. Black blood oozed down its leg. A weak point. That's when Varnok raised one hand and spoke for the first time. Not in words, but in a groaning chorus of voices, layered and painful. Leave this place! Then it attacked with a new spell. The ground beneath Liam opened a spiral of living roots pulling downward, trying to bury him alive. He launched a firebolt straight down to burn the grasping tendrils, then leapt sideways, throwing out a Water Blade to steady his landing. He hit the ground hard, rolled, and forced himself up panting, bleeding, but not stopping. Stamina critical, mana below 20%. Not yet, he growled. Not while I'm this close. Solus pulsed in his hand, not just as a blade, but as a presence. The sword seemed to shimmer, feeding off his resolve. And then a new message flashed. Soulbound weapon bonus activated. Synchronization 5%. Unlocked Piercing Flame, level 1. Liam's eyes widened. This was it. One shot, one chance. He charged forward, dodging roots, vaulting over broken logs. As he ran, he poured everything he had left into Solus. The blade ignited, not just with fire, but with a golden-orange light that cut through the sickly haze. Varnok turned too slow. Liam leapt into the air. Piercing flame! He drove Solus straight into the glowing red core of the beast's chest. The corrupted orb cracked, then exploded in a shockwave of fire and light. Liam was thrown backward, slamming into a tree. Everything went white heat, ash, and noise. Then silence. A long, aching silence. When he opened his eyes, the forest had changed again. Smoke choked the air. The tree line was scorched black, smoldering with dying embers. The once lush clearing had become a crater of splintered roots and burnt stone. Varnok's massive form lay motionless at the center, its chest hollowed out, the red core shattered. Liam staggered to his feet, leaning heavily on Solus, breath ragged. He'd done it. The Guardian was down. He looked around at the destruction, barely believing it. For a moment, all he could hear was the low crackle of fire and the whistle of wind through the broken trees. Then, corruption spike detected. Elder Varnok, core remnants. Warning, mutation event in progress. Liam's head snapped around. The shattered fragments of the red orb began to float, shimmering with raw, unstable energy. Black veins spiderwebbed across the earth, converging on the corpse. The veins that had once writhed under Varnok's command now pulsed violently, fusing with its remains. No! With a sickening, grinding sound, Varnok's body twitched, its head jerked sideways, then back, then contorted viciously. The chest reformed around a new, twisted black core, darker than obsidian, radiating heat and madness. Phase 2 initiated. Varnok Reborn. Blightborn Warden. Level 28. Unstable aberration. The thing that stood now was no longer the corrupted guardian of the forest. This was pure rage, a walking plague of rot and fury. Its bark was now jagged and open, pulsing like flesh. One arm had transformed into a massive thorned whip, the other a jagged club fused with shards of stone. Its lower body had become a writhing tangle of roots, letting it move faster, almost slither. Its once groaning voice was gone, replaced with a shriek like snapping trees and cracking bones. And it was staring at him. Liam barely had time to dodge before it lunged faster than before, a blur of writhing vines and brute force. He threw himself to the side and felt the wind of the club narrowly miss his skull. The whip arm lashed out, caught his side, and flung him across the battlefield. He slammed into a rock with a thud that knocked the air from his lungs. HP, -38. Rib damage detected. Pain dampening engaged. He gasped and rolled, casting fire bolts mid-movement. The flame struck Varnok's face, but it had no effect. It laughed, a horrible noise that made Liam's skin crawl. "So you evolved too," Liam muttered, coughing blood. "And let's see who survives the final stage." He switched tactics immediately. If fire barely hurt it now, he'd need something more controlled. Water blades, speed, weak spots. Use the terrain. He activated Predator's instincts again. The battlefield became sharper, the danger zones glowing faintly in his perception. System activation complete. Enhanced reflex mode engaged. Weak point detected. Right shoulder joint. Rear root cluster. Inner core runes. He darted to the side, circling the beast. Varnok struck again, this time with both arms, a crushing combo that flattened the trees behind Liam. Liam dove forward, slid under the whip arm, and slashed upward at the shoulder. Solus connected. Bark and sap sprayed into the air. The beast howled. Its whip arm spasmed and retracted. That was a start, but he needed to hit its core. He could see it now, partially exposed, buried behind a cage of twisted branches, glowing with ancient sigils. He couldn't just destroy it, he had to purify it. Soulbound synchronization, 8%. Weapon enhancement available. Solus, Flame of Purity, level 1. He felt it again, the sword resonating with him, responding to his will. He pressed his palm flat to the blade and whispered, "Light me up!" Solus ignited, not just with flame, but golden light, laced with threads of blue. The sword had become more than steel. It was becoming his essence. Varnok roared again, and launched into a berserk flurry, whip flailing, club smashing, and poison gas emanating from its mouth. Twisted black vines erupted from beneath Liam's feet. He leapt between dying trees, parkour style, using roots and fallen stones as springboards. He got behind it, closer, and stabbed Solus deep into the rear root cluster. A detonation of golden light ripped through the forest. Varnock shrieked and staggered, vines flailing. Now! He darted up the creature's back using exposed bark like handholds, sprinting toward the glowing heart. The monster twisted, trying to grab him, but he was faster. Liam leapt high above its chest, the blade pointed down. For the old life, and for the new one I'm building. He plunged Solus into the core. Light exploded. The forest screamed, and the darkness shattered. Silence. Then wind. Real wind. Cool, natural, unsickened air drifted across Liam's face as he lay on his back, arms spread, body broken, but heart still beating. The black vines had disintegrated. The corruption was gone. Varnock's massive form had collapsed into harmless roots and dust, crumbling into the soil. The forest was no longer angry. It was quiet, at peace. Boss defeated. Blightborn Warden. Elder Varnock. Level up. 12 to 14. New skill unlocked. Flame of Purity. Level 1. Heartwood Crest. Key item. Guardian Slayer. Path to the Eastern Gate opened. Liam smiled weakly, closing his eyes for a moment. He had done it. He'd conquered the forest. Sunrise was slow, warm, and impossibly quiet. Golden light spilled over the treetops, weaving through the mist and settling across the scorched remains of the final battlefield. Where the corrupted roots had once writhed, there was now only stillness. The soil had hardened, the poisonous fog had vanished, and for the first time Liam could hear the sound of bird song returning to the trees. He stood in the clearing, battered but upright, the morning light catching on his torn cloak and the golden edge of Solus. The sword hummed faintly in his hand, not with urgency, but with calm, like it too was breathing in this peace. Varnock was gone. The Guardian's twisted remains had crumbled into soil and ash, leaving only a faint indent in the earth where its corrupted heart had burned out. Nothing of its rage remained, nothing but the weight in Liam's memory. You have cleansed a corrupted Guardian. Ecosystem stabilizing. Minor favor with nature spirits unlocked. The forest recognizes your strength. You may pass. Liam gave a quiet nod, almost a bow toward the fallen treant's resting place. I hope whatever you were, you're free now. He didn't expect an answer, but a soft breeze stirred the leaves around him, warm and gentle, as if in acknowledgement. He took his time gathering what remained. Varnock's Heartwood Crest was a dense, rune-etched, seed-like relic, which now rested in his inventory and pulsed softly when he looked at it. He couldn't tell what it did yet, only that it was marked as a key item, something tied to future trials, maybe even the deeper story of this world. He cleaned Solus, rewrapped the hilt, and checked his equipment. The void pouch was heavier now, filled with loot, materials, notes, and the sealed artifact he found back in the ruins. His clothes were in shambles, but functional. His body ached, his ribs throbbed, and his mana reserves were still barely recovering. But for the first time since arriving in this world, Liam felt ready. He found the trail just beyond the clearing, a winding path of cracked stones, barely visible beneath roots and moss. Soulbound marked it clearly now. Path to the Eastern Gate, unlocked. Estimated distance to nearest settlement, 7.6 kilometers. Basic civilization detected. Adventurers Guild presence confirmed. His pulse jumped at that last line. A real town. A real guild. People. The forest had been his crucible. Brutal, wild, and unrelenting. But it had shaped him, molded him, forged him into something that the world beyond might finally see. No longer forgotten, no longer weak. He stepped onto the path, letting the broken forest fall behind him. The trees began to thin. The light grew clearer. The mist broke apart like fog on a warm lake. For a while, he just walked, not rushing, not running, just feeling the rhythm of his steps. And then, in the distance, he saw it. The edge of the forest ended in a stone outpost, an old, weathered structure half covered in ivy but still standing strong. Beyond it, he saw roads, smoke rising from chimneys, faint sounds of carts and voices. A walled town, not grand, but alive. Civilization, trade, people. Liam stood at the edge, staring at it for a long moment. And in that stillness, the memories flooded in again. The orphanage, the cold floors, the silence, the bark of bullies, the soft fur of the only friend he'd ever had, the pain of sacrifice, the peace of death. And then her, Ava. The radiant smile, the quiet apology, the second chance. He swallowed hard. "You kept your promise," he whispered. He looked down at his hands, scarred, stained, calloused. Not a child's hands anymore. "I won't waste it." Chapter milestone achieved. First trial, forest conquered. +1 skill point. Soulbound synchronization, +2%. Reforged soul, 2 of 3. New system features unlocked upon entering settlement. Liam blinked at the message. More secrets, more systems, more of this world waiting to be explored. And now, for the first time, he would no longer be alone while doing it. He took the final step onto the stone road. Birds scattered from trees behind him. A guard's silhouette stood atop the eastern wall of the outpost in the distance, watching him approach. And Liam smiled. Not because the forest was behind him, but because everything ahead of him had finally opened up.
Alright, guys, that is all I'm doing today. Yeah, I've been doing this fucking book whole time. Hopefully y'all enjoyed the hour and a half of my book today. I'll probably be back on maybe tomorrow for another hour, and we can continue on with the book. And like I said, if y'all want to ask anything or comment about the book,